Soulwind TV presents.
Every 8 minutes and 57 seconds, roughly, a person dies from fentanyl-related overdoses. If a commercial plane crashed with 175 people every single day, that would be news. But it's not noticed because they're marked off as addicts.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Bullseye Nuclear, Empowered to Change's first episode of Empowering the Voiceless to Speak. We want to give a space to hear from our guests that have lived experiences, and today's topic that we're going to talk about is the real pandemic, and that is fentanyl. So I want to introduce my first guest, Matt Jenkins. I have known this young man for a couple of years now, and I have mad respect for him. So I want to give him the floor because he has I'm real excited about what he is going to share today, and not just his lived experience and what fentanyl and how fentanyl, the pandemic, the real pandemic, has affected his life, but how it's affected the Tampa Bay area and abroad. Matt, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you for having me. It is an absolute pleasure. Again, my name is Matt Jenkins. I am an addict in recovery. I was in Empowered to Change a few different times, graduated successfully out of drug court in 2018, and have now made my way to find a life without the use of substances. A little bit of background about me. I'm from South Carolina originally, and in that area, still to this day, recovery is not a really big thing. You don't hear a lot about it. And we'll kind of touch on that later. But at 14 years old, I was an IV drug user. I had found the hole to fill my void with substances. At that time, fentanyl was not really prevalent yet. It had not hit the streets. I was using illicit substances, but the substances that I was getting were those substances. Another key point I will touch on. Essentially, through my lifetime, I have gone through many treatment centers, institutions, jails. I've had many times where the abuse of drugs should have been fatal for me. And I am lucky enough to be here to try to give a voice to the people that didn't get that opportunity. So speaking on a few things, wow, fentanyl. I can't even tell you that is my biggest enemy. Today, it is something that is now just being noticed, but it's been very big on the street since 2012, 2013. I remember when it first touched down and they were saying what it was and how it was this stronger substance and it was just so great. However, they left all the dark parts out. And the dark parts come with robbing you of your life. And if you are so lucky to live through using, it comes with misery. It comes with you losing who you are, losing your family, your loved ones. The bridges that you may have built are already built for you. You will burn them to the ground, and you won't even know what you're doing. You will be so blindsided by this poison.
Yeah.
That is addiction in a sense to me. That is something that is a loss of choice when I put it into my body, and I am unable to stop. I continue to use, and I will, in active addiction, hurt anybody or anything to get to what I need to get. And I am somebody that comes from a middle-class family, very good parents, raised me very right. And like I said, at 14, I was an IV drug addict. Now, in my town, back in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, you wouldn't really see a lot of addicts. People really didn't understand. So I moved to Florida, and a few mistakes led me to meet Shelley. And from that point, I can tell you that a lot has changed. I can tell you that I've learned and I've grown, but I can also tell you that everything around me has not. And when I say that, I mean the fact that I turn on, let's say, just for an example, I turn on the news. I see things about the pandemic, about COVID-19. I see about the amount of deaths, the totality and fatalities of everything that is happening. Yet I look on my phone or my Facebook and I see obituary after obituary of kids, children, teenagers, adults, fathers, husbands, wives, daughters. The list goes on of people that are passing from addiction. Now, it was just a thing to me where I thought it was just the addicts. But ever since this fentanyl came abroad, it has changed and made such a huge shift in the way the drugs are being used today. A few points with that, meaning, kids these days are going out and they're trying to buy things such as Xanax, Adderall, maybe to get through a test, a benzo because they're anxious, or maybe even an opiate, a Percocet or an oxycodone of some sort, and they're laced with fentanyl and they're dying.
Yeah.
These are kids that's happening one time.
And they're not addicts. Is that what you're saying?
They're not. They are people from all walks of life.
Right.
People in college, kids in high school, even in middle school. There are parents, lawyers, doctors, and people don't want to believe that addiction or even substance use can touch their family, but I'm here to tell you that it can, and it will if you're not careful. And that's what essentially I feel is so important about doing this, is there's so many groups right now spreading awareness, yet I see so many families losing their kids and saying, how did this happen? I didn't even know fentanyl existed.
Right.
And that's what gets on my nerves. That's what gets under my skin, is why do I even have to explain?
Well, and a question I have is, how early do you think is appropriate to give awareness? What is your vision there? Because is it are we saying that elementary school kids? I mean, I heard in the news that there were candy laced with fentanyl to give it, some type of kick. I heard that in a news report in Texas that there was marijuana laced with fentanyl. So what is happening here? And the level of and the frequency, Matt, of people dying. I mean, you and I, we've lost a handful of people just in the last few months.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's been 3 people in the last week have passed directly related to fentanyl. They were all under the age of 29. I am a father of a beautiful 6-year-old girl, and I can tell you that I'm not anyone to give, parental advice, but I can say that I don't think it's ever too early to let these kids know the full side of addiction. It's not just do not use drugs, because that's just merely a fraction of the problem. Right. It's not when they use drugs, it's after they use the drug, they pick up the substance. These kids don't know that they go out and they pick up a party, and next thing it's a habit. They turn into these weekend warriors, and if you don't know what that means, it means someone that uses strongly on the weekends but is functional during the week, and then that turns into a full-time addiction, because that's what happened to me. I was just a kid trying to fit in, just wanted to experience something. And next thing I know, I was a full-blown addict at 15, struggling how to make it through 9th grade because I was going through withdrawal.
And your parents didn't have any ideas?
They know.
So did it start with, I can tell you, I know a young man who started taking Adderall so that he thought that he would be a better baseball player. I mean, and parents have no clue.
Yeah.
Right?
And as somebody that came from, I guess you could say, I'm guilty of manipulating my parents, for sure. I would say that I hid the signs. Yeah. But that's the thing, is that even when addicts recover, we do tend to hide the true signs of what it looks like when somebody's using, and I did my best to hide it, and I believe there were times that my family, had suspicions. But I definitely, looking back, wish that overall I was given a different perspective and different view on what drugs really meant. Yeah. It didn't mean we're partying on the weekends and we're fitting in. It didn't mean I'm drinking alcohol so I can talk to a girl. It comes with this long line of this misery, this theft, this stealing, and everything else, and then it eventually leads to what we're talking about, and that's the fentanyl.
So a question I have for our parents that might be listening, parents of elementary school kids, parents of middle school, single mothers of high school students, what would you tell them? What would you say? What signs should they look for if they're stressed out, studying for a test, they're up all night? What would you say to look at some of the warning signs?
So I would really, there's a lot of physical signs.
Okay.
You can have the broken out face. If they're IV drug users, they're typically wearing long sleeves. The weight loss, the paleness of the skin, the bagginess under the eyes, the fatigue. Those are all signs. But really, I think if I could, I would say that parents should really focus on the emotional
Okay.
side of where their kids are, where their self-esteem is, where their self-worth is. Are they
That's good.
fitting in with their friends? Are they happy? Are they happy with what they're doing? Do they feel that they're under pressure? Because these are all things behind the scenes that the kid, like me, goes back into the room and says, how can I fix this? Or how can I stop from feeling this way? Or how can I be this to show my parents I really can be something? And there's so many reasons. I mean, the list just can go on and on of why a kid could pick up that first substance. But what I want to do is to try to get the message out there to parents to let these kids know at an early age, because the drugs are getting offered earlier and earlier. I mean, the kids that are getting them get them, and then they sell them to younger kids, and the younger kids sell them to younger kids.
And they're killing at one time
Yes,
use.
and they
That's
are.
the reality.
That's the thing, is that now they're not getting these prescription medications. They're getting cartel pressed, fentanyl laced, exact replica of prescription medication that even a pharmacist could hardly tell the difference.
Right.
And kids are taking it, and it's killing them. And it's just at a point where, when you're losing, literally, 15 people a month. And it's just for a fun fact, the leading cause of death for men and women under the age of 45 and under. That's insane to me.
That is.
Where's the coverage on this?
Right.
Where's the stories? Because I see so many stories, and I see the open borders, that's something that's starting to pop up on the news. But what I don't see is these kids that are dying and their families that are having to grieve. And there's tons and tons of great nonprofits and like awareness and advocates or organizations out there that, are out there to try and put a halt on addiction and everything else. But I feel like when I go to parents that I guess their kids did good through school and now they're out of college and they're having issues with substances now. And now it's even way more dangerous than it was when I used to use substances.
Right.
They're coming to me and they're trying to figure out what to do because they're scared of their child passing through fentanyl. And it's
devastating.
Yes.
And I want to press in. I don't want to gloss over something that you said. I want to really press into the uncomfortable. When you mention cartel, all right, I want to talk more about that. I want to talk about how COVID actually magnified the drug issue. I can only share what I saw in my lived experiences here in Tampa Bay when COVID happened. I know our organization that provides safe housing and programs for trauma survivors, and you can put trauma on, whatever that looks like.
Yes.
But I know that in March of 2020, when everything shut down inside of 4 days, we, our organization, we were at max capacity. And we had still people that were waiting for a bed. We had a dozen people waiting for a bed, but everything shut down. And so you fast forward 6 months, okay, and, maintaining people in the healing process and encouraging them, listen, life happens, left field happens, pandemics happen. How do we deal with that? But then dealing with the societal fallout, if you will, on COVID, when all of a sudden people were dying on the streets. Whereas, and I don't know your particular story, and if being arrested actually saved your life. I know that other people said that being arrested saved their life, right? And then they got a chance to detox, and they got ordered into a program comparable to ours or to us.
You saved my life.
And then, and we're honored that that's the whole purpose, empowering the broken to heal. However, when COVID happened and there was shutdowns in the jail and there was, I noticed, and you can even see the stats, that the arrests were different. Okay. People that normally got pulled over or normally got arrested. And there was no book on COVID pandemic 101. So I'm not pointing a finger or blaming anyone here, but I'm saying the reality was fewer arrests and people were legit dying on the street. I want to talk about that, about COVID and then the fallout. And then you talked about borders and where is this massive fentanyl coming from?
So with COVID is a big topic also because like I did a little research, right? Just quick Google search is very simple.
Okay.
You can look like, for example, COVID in 2020 to December 2021, there was $150 billion for the CARES Act, $8.3 billion for government agencies to respond to COVID-19. There was another $931 billion given in stimulus, and that's since 2020. And then you look at our border and you look at fentanyl abuse and all that. It says that the Biden administration has given $1.5 billion to help the opioid crisis, and another bill that includes $1.7 billion for federal substance abuse prevention and treatment. That's the one that's more typical to helping the addicts. Let's just take one number, $931 billion in 18 months, and then we look at $3.2 billion. You can see where their focus is. And then with the open borders, it's very clear to see. I mean, I try to keep the addiction out of politics, but it's become so close to each other that it's insane. Yeah. You see the open border, the fentanyl is being rushed through these borders. It is clear as day. Every single day they say how we caught this much fentanyl at the border. We caught this much fentanyl at the border. We have this much gotaways, but where is it coming from and everything else? They're finding it in candy, like kids. They're finding it pressed in every pill. And now with the COVID shutdown, like you were talking about, and the fentanyl being pushed in to our country, it has left a lot of addicts in a very bad place, and a lot of people in particular in a bad place because it's not just addicts anymore. Like you said, the people that were homeless, they remain homeless. A lot of stuff they did not get, the fund, or things weren't open and are operational to let them come in. You had people depressed, isolated, locked indoors, and unable to get to meetings, unable to get to these routines that help them cope with, or even a sudden shift in everyday life where somebody's now having to live behind closed doors in fear for their safety is a very easy way to pick up a bad habit. And when your only solution is to reach out, and the substances you're getting, it doesn't even matter what you're getting. It's all laced with fentanyl. Marijuana now on the streets has fentanyl in it.
Yeah.
We have weapons of mass destruction in our neighborhoods, poisoning our entire youth and killing them, and nobody is hardly getting a grab.
Nobody's screaming about it.
Yeah, no one's screaming. There's people talking, but I don't know why people aren't yelling. I don't know why I don't hear people screaming, wilding out, profanity everywhere, honestly, because look at it. It's killing our youth. It's taking families away. It's ripping families apart. And the funding is going to something that really is...
You don't see the results. You see all those billions of dollars. Then why is everybody still dying?
Yeah.
What is happening?
And it's like... You put so much money into funding medication and the COVID vaccines. And, they're so adamant about, let's get the booster, let's get this, let's get that. Let's get Narcan in every car. Let's start getting Narcan administration in, teaching people how to save each other's lives. Because if we don't come together as a community, and community speaking as our entire country come together in your community of all walks of life, then this is just going to increase. Because it stops where we start, in my belief. And it gets me shaking sometimes because the aggravation inside me, because I know what families are going through right now. Every 8 minutes and 57 seconds, roughly, a person dies from fentanyl-related overdoses. This does not include prescription pills, methamphetamines, benzodiazepines. This does not include alcoholism. There's roughly 175 people die that every day. Now, if a plane crashed, if a commercial plane crashed with 175 people every single day, that would be news.
Yes.
They would stop airports. There would be investigations. There would be lawsuits. There would be things going out the wazoo. People they couldn't get away from it. It'd be worse than COVID.
Right.
But it's not noticed because they're marked off as addicts. But
Right.
guess what, everybody? Let me be the first one to tell you these people aren't addicts. The last few people that I've lost in the last week were not addicts. They were normal people living a good life, college graduates, just starting their life.
Tell me about that. If you can.
So out of the family's respects, I will obviously keep the name, but he was 28 years old, graduated out of College of Charleston, a star football player. He broke almost every record in weightlifting in our school. He was an overall athlete. He was an amazing person. He was one of those people that brings joy and life to the room. I honestly, I sat there and I thought, he probably could honestly sit in front of a camera and God and himself and say, I've never wronged anyone, because he was that kind of person.
Wow.
And, he was my best friend up until 14 when I steered away to substance use. And, he got in a fight with his girlfriend, an argument over relationship stuff, very minuscule stuff. And he wanted to take just a little bit of weight off his shoulders. But the weight that he took off his shoulders turned out to take his life, and it was fentanyl, and it was from my understanding, a fake oxy, is what is the best report we've gotten so far.
I'm so sorry.
And I'm very sorry too, because I've been through a lot of loss. Unfortunately, I can say that fentanyl has taken every single person I grew up with, every last one.
Wow.
All of middle school, high school, college friends, took them all. But it's just gotten to a point where it's so grave that parents and adolescents alike start to open their eyes and say, okay, I'm not using drugs. People are trying to poison me.
Right.
It's
That's the horrifying.
That's the whole thing.
Reality right there.
It's you're paying.
Lacing it with candy, lacing it with THC gummies.
And
it's horrifying.
And what really scares me about that is in a cartel's mind, I don't see where the money really goes up with mixing fentanyl in with prescription pills, maybe to sell more of them, to pass it off because people aren't necessarily big with the fentanyl.
Right.
But then you look, why is it looking like candy? Why is it looking like these things? Well, maybe because
right.
It
well,
seems
and
like
the
an
question
extermination.
I have is, it almost seems like, and I understand that the things that we're talking here, they're uncomfortable, they're controversial. But it almost looks like population control.
Yes.
To me, because drug dealers, who's supplying them, and what is the mandate? And listen, we want to give a voice. We want to change the face of what a convicted felon looks like. We want to change the face of what an addict looks like, because the cultural response is, oh, that's just an addict. No, that's a son. That's a best friend. That's a father. That's somebody who had some form of trauma. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been wrong many times, but some form of trauma that they wanted to roll the dice on using a substance to self-medicate that pain. Okay, so what that says to me as a citizen of this country, what that says to all of us in this community, is that we have to come up with something better. We have to care enough. We have to love enough. We have to dig in, roll up our sleeves and say, okay, what's going on? What is the pain here? How can we help you? How can trauma therapy is real? It takes more than overnight, right? It was what, years for you?
Longer than, yeah.
But we have to change this stereotype.
Yes.
About what is an addict. And there's nobody, it's almost like, oh, that's just an addict. We throw those people away. What? No, we don't.
And I could not agree with you more, because that is a huge stereotype that is so widely just taken the wrong way. Even alcoholics, if someone dies from alcoholism, you see more sympathy and compassion than if it was an addict.
I know.
But you're right. These addicts are sons. These addicts are fathers. They are sisters. They are mothers. They are me.
Yeah.
They are the people that, I think that it might be almost rare at this time in this day to meet somebody who can honestly say they have not at all been affected by addiction. Like no one in their family has ever. I feel like that's got to be a very small number.
It has to be.
But it's just time where something has to absolutely change. Communities have to come together.
Yes.
Schools have to start coming together. They have to educate people on things. I learned everything from drugs from the streets. I really hope schools start to learn to teach kids about drugs in school more than just say, don't do drugs, because that is honestly just a green light to go do it. The don't do drugs slogan, I'm sorry, I believe it was Reagan, it's not working. We need to be louder. We need to be more involved. We need to be more hands-on, in my opinion. We need so many things, but it starts with small voices that want to be loud, and then that creates large groups that want to be loud, and then that creates change. And I feel that in this time, if there is not a huge dramatic shift in where we are, then there will be somebody else doing a podcast just like we are right now. But there's going to be a lot more of them. Mm-hmm. And yes, we want that, but we don't want that in the purpose because somebody lost somebody.
Right.
We want it in the purpose to prevent somebody to lose it. Let's stop looking at treatment. Let's stop looking at addicts in a treatment at a catastrophic level. Let's stop trying to fix the problem once they've used the substance. How about let's start preventing it maybe?
Yes.
The preventative treatment. Let's start educating what addiction looks like, what long-term addiction looks like, what short-term use of the wrong substance looks like. These kids aren't walking around with fentanyl, a Narcan, and a guidebook that says this is how you use drugs safe.
Right.
They're rebellious against their parents with groups of kids using substances at parties or to fit in or alone.
Right.
And I think that there just needs to become a new understanding of where parents can have an open conversation with their children without getting extremely upset and without the kid getting upset, and having a comfort level of understanding and explaining the severity that this is now life or death. You do not have to be an addict who died from fentanyl. You can be somebody that was just driving by and happened to use something one day. It takes one time. And I promise no one is invincible. Somebody that might be watching this podcast that might be in active addiction, I promise you are not invincible. I'm telling you that because I've overdosed 4 times, and the only reason I am here is because I had somebody around me with Narcan, and that was by the grace of God.
Yeah.
I should not be here. And I'm promised myself and all of my loved ones that I've lost, and all of the ones that will lose their life, that I am going to live the rest of my life to try and be a voice to that. Because if I'm not hearing it, then somebody's not loud enough. Mm-hmm. And that's just my overall opinion, and here in Tampa, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. It's crazy in my small town in Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Okay, now you bring this to the pill-pushing capital of the country, right here in Tampa Bay, Florida. Mm-hmm. Somebody's dying. Obviously, like to say every 9 minutes, but literally. People we know, people I lived with, people I housed with, people we worked with, loved ones, normal people, addicts, all walks of life. These things don't discriminate. And I truly believe that if communities start to just come together to understand that void is fillable without substance use, then we can knock 2 birds out with one stone. We can stop the production of fentanyl simply by stop purchasing it, by helping these kids avoid ever having to go through that traumatic experience, or the traumatic experience that might cause them to go through the addiction. And
you bring up an excellent point, because while Narcan saved your life, and I'm so thankful that was there. You wouldn't be here right now speaking, and grateful for that. But to your point of getting to the heart of the matter and preventative before, and educating these precious young people that fentanyl and drug use is out to steal, kill, and destroy, and it's masked with a fun time. It's masked with a high. It's masked with a quick, what you do with friends at a party. But then it cannot be controlled. And getting that word out. And you also touched on parents to create a safe space for their kids. What I have heard over and over for the last 8 years, that I've been doing this directly, but when I was even in communications and in law enforcement, it boils down to the young person wants to make their parents proud. They want to perform. They want to not let them down, and whatever standard they didn't meet it. So how are they going to deal with that, quote, disappointment or thought that their parents are disappointed? And parents, that's what I'm a mom, and really the pressure that parents that we don't even realize that maybe we put on them, teachers, society, of performance driven. Okay. And then not knowing what to do. Failing is part of life. And we need to understand that you have to have a safe place to land. And it's okay. It's okay to fail that test. It's okay to not be up all night and take something, right? And do your best and not get the best in the scheme of life. That is not, it means jack. Right? But then if we do not create a safe space to have these conversations with our young people, to say, listen, you're free to fail. You're free to mess up. And I love you no matter what. You have a daughter, right? And to come and let's have this conversation, and there's no repercussions of it. And I can tell you, I've learned a lot as a parent, and I've done a lot of things wrong as a parent. And to speak in to even single moms, single dads that are working all the time, and they don't even have that emotional fortitude at the end of the day, right? That's where the breakdown happens, but that's where communities have to come together. And not just churches, yes, churches, but communities as a whole, nonprofits, people going, okay, instead of pointing a finger and judging why that person is not a good parent or why that person is an addict or whatnot, that we need to have a whole dose of understanding and love and non-judgment, because that is what is going to help heal the hearts of people. And I believe that.
I could not agree more. That very well said. The freedom to fail.
Yeah.
That was big.
Yeah.
That's something that, it really is. I don't think any parent ever notices the toll that it takes on the child. And I don't think the child will ever necessarily try to be fully transparent of how that makes them feel.
Right. Well, they might not have the mental capacity
right.
even.
And they might not even know how to approach the situation, or they might not even know what they're feeling. For a long time, I had a feeling inside me. I could not put a finger on it. Right. I did not know what it was.
There's been a lot of good conversation here. And I believe that shining the light on lived experiences, that is what is true. And shining the light, there's so much controversy that swirls around, okay, fentanyl, that swirls around illegal drug use. And, how it gets in here, how it's trafficked. It's almost like this supply and demand where I'm so thankful. I'm going to touch on Narcan again. I'm thankful for Narcan. But at the same time, I'm just going to be transparent with you, Matt, as a parent. I don't want to have Narcan just in case of the offset chance that you decide to do that. So just pressing into this uncomfortability, yet I'm thankful it was around because you're alive because of it. So it's such a dichotomy of where do we go from here? How do we move forward? How do we make change that actually lasts and impact? And I agree with you. It begins with prevention. It's getting in these schools. It's this, the noise, and I'm not trying to be all political and controversial about another topic. We can spend another podcast on that. But there's such argument about books and what we're putting in them when we're completely, and I'm not disagreeing about, those arguments there. Children are so impressionable. Okay. And to talk about what they're going to face. I was in the era of just say no. I just want to tell you. And I'm interested. I don't know the stats off of my head. I can tell you, I remember Nancy Reagan and the promotion of just say no. And I'm going to tell you, when it was handed to me, when I was at a concert at 15 years old, and it was handed to me, all I could think of is, no, thank you. And that one little choice doesn't make me better. It was in my brain. It was taught to me when I was in elementary school. Just say no. Now, my parents expounded on that. And I remember my mom saying, the thing about that is if you just take one, you're hooked. That scared the living daylights out of me. They're like, Shelly, you just take one. You just want to see what it's like. You're going to be hooked. And that scared the crap out of me.
It's so true. It's that old cliche saying, Narcotics Anonymous, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And it can never be so true. And, I was trying to touch on the point of you said the freedom to failure. That's huge because, kids these days, they will never really truly, I would never tell my parents, listen, I'm feeling inferior. I'm feeling like I'm not being what I should be. I'm not living up to what your expectations. I let you down. And, at the same time, I'm sure they never realized, or in even a hypothetical situation, the pressure they may be putting on me.
Right.
When we're using me as this example.
Okay.
So when you now have this pressure that's built inside of you, I mean, you just go straight to this void, filling this void, and it's almost engraved in kids' heads, even people that aren't addicts. When they go through something traumatic, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know a lot of people that will say their first thing is, I need to escape from this.
Right.
Second thing is, what will get me to escape from that? And the third thing is acting upon that. Now, I don't know statistics, but I'd say a good handful out of that time, they're going to say that number two, that what will get that void, what will fill that void is going to be some kind of substance, whether it's alcohol, whether it's an illicit substance. Yep. And it used to be different, but now it's one and done. It's right. You don't get that second chance. This fentanyl is coming in and it's taking lives. The fentanyl, the car fentanyl, this is a whole other conversation. That's just toxic in itself too. But I mean, it's where there has to be this safe place and this understanding. And I think that it almost starts in each household to have as a family come together and then get a safe place to know that if you're feeling bad, it's okay. If you failed, like you said earlier, it's okay. It's okay to feel emotions and to feel sad or feel like you let somebody down or to fail and learn, or to grow as we grow through what we go through, the whole thing. I mean, if there is that safe place established, I truly believe that kids will come out more and say and talk to their parents about how they really feel. And in that sense can avoid the whole point of where they pick up the substance behind their parents' back. Right. And then always it's leading to death. Ladies and gentlemen, today, drugs is leading to death. One and done. I will tell you from being from the streets, from treatment centers, from jails, from living a very good life and a clean life, I can tell you that they're everywhere and it does not discriminate. It is touching everybody and it is killing everybody that touches it. So, it's just getting to the point where if everyone is not loud, then we will continue to lose people until everyone is loud. Right. But why do we have to continue to lose people? Right. We should start it now. Yes. 2 hours ago.
I would love to have you back, and there's a few other topics that I want to talk about. I want to talk about parents that are addicted to fentanyl, parents that are, you look at the systemic decline, and that is certainly for another show. But I appreciate you, Matt, and I appreciate the courage that it takes to put yourself out there and to talk about a topic, because if it saves one life, if one parent, if one child, if one young person, if it's not too late, if anybody is drawing breath and you're still addicted or hooked to fentanyl, you certainly can give us a call and we will put our information at the end of the show. But get to a detox center. Don't give up. And I know your story. You said it took a few times around the mountain.
It does.
And by the grace of God, you're still breathing and you're alive. And I see that you have come through. And you're coming through, and you want to take as many people through the other side, alive, sober, well, educated. And I commend you for that.
I truly appreciate that, Shelly. And I appreciate the opportunity of just being able to share a little bit about where I'm at and my story and, being able to be a voice for a few of the people that didn't make it. And like you said, for those that are actually still suffering from addiction, look, don't pick up no matter what. I know that's that thought in the back of your head, but I'm here to tell you, you can get through it. It's just take it minute by minute. It doesn't even have to be day by day, hour by hour. Just take it second by second. Yeah. You can get through that. Get help, reach out, detox centers, whatever you can do, because there is a life on the other side. And the grass, it gets green where you water it.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Oh, I like that. And your life does matter. So thank you for listening in. Thank you. It takes all of us to change our community one life at a time. And so, Michelle Snyder, Empowered to Change with Bullseye Nuclear. We will catch you next time. Thank you.
Coming soon at the Central Park Performing Arts Center in Largo, Florida. The first annual Soulwin Women's Conference. Hear 20 plus inspiring speakers that will transform you, shift you into your divine path. Mark your calendars, ladies. June 21st to the 23rd. 3 full days of fellowship, worship, encouragement, and supporting local female business owners.
When your soul prospers, so will your health, your finances, and your relationships.
I need a lot of time trying to figure it out.
You're stronger than you think.
God wants us to walk in freedom. He wants us to understand the blessing.
It's time to be healed in your soul, know your true worth, and be all you were beautifully and wonderfully made to be. Purchase your tickets now for this life-changing event at www.soulwinconference.com.